interview.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you so much. Recording. And I am timing myself, Michelle, I believe. You said yes. Okay. All right. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Francine. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, guys. My sobriety date is July 26, 1979. I just celebrated, me and God and you just celebrated 46 years of continuous, and I stress the word continuous sobriety. I didn't skip a few years and tell you I've got all this time. No, I haven't had a drink or a drug continuously for the last 46. And that I owe to you guys and to God. So thank you, Alice, for asking me to lead the meeting tonight. If you are new to Alcoholics Anonymous, first I want to say welcome. Welcome. And if you are here tonight and you're new, you are being drawn for some reason that you probably don't even understand why yet. And I'm not just talking about with me, but just this meeting, any meeting. You are being drawn at this moment in time to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what I will say to you is stay with us. You know, most people will say, keep coming back. And I appreciate why we do that. You know, we say that because we want you to know if by chance you go out and if you're lucky enough to make it back here, and trust me, not everyone does, but if you do, we want you to know that you are so welcome. The doors of Alcoholics Anonymous never close. Never. Not even during the pandemic. We never close shop. So if you're able to make it back, we want you to know you are so welcome to be here. But I'm going to say stay because the magic really only happens when you stay long enough for the fog to lift. And so that you can experience, amazingly good times and seemingly bad times, and know that you don't have to drink or use no matter what. That's the beauty of staying here over the long haul. So I hope you stay with us. And also, if you are here, well, I have to tell you, I think it's really quite special because the fact that this is a meeting where people get to talk about God. And if you're showing up, whoa, if you're showing up, there's something inside of you that's drawing you here. Just a tiny opening. And I am so glad that you are. So whenever I share about a step, a tradition, or a concept, I always am taken to the literature. I'm a literature baby, and not just a big book. I got sober gratefully with a sponsor who introduced me to a plethora of AA literature. And so that's what I use when I share. And among my favorite books are two of them I'm going to read from. One is Language of the Heart, and one is the 12 and 12. And Language of the Heart, for those of you that are not familiar, it's a history book, and it's a compilation of Bill Wilson's early Grapevine essays. And it's a Grapevine book, which Grapevine is AA. It's really a wonderful book because it gives you insight into Bill W.'s thinking when he came up with the steps, the traditions, and the concepts, when he really delved into those essays and wrote them. And so I love this book. And I'm going to read just a paragraph first from one of the essays, and its title, if you have the book, you can feel free to follow with me. It's on page 251 in Language of the Heart, and the essay is titled God as We Understand Him, The Dilemma of No Faith, and it's dated April 1961. Bill Wilson starts like this. He says, the phrase, God as we understand him, is perhaps the most important expression to be found in our whole AA vocabulary. That's what he says. That's the very first sentence. Then he goes on to say, within the compass of these 5 significant words, God as we understand him, there can be included every kind and degree of faith, together with the positive assurance that each of us may choose his own. Then Bill goes to say, scarcely less valuable to us are those supplemental expressions, a higher power, as an example, and a power greater than ourselves. For all who deny or seriously doubt a deity, these frame an open door over whose threshold the unbeliever, which I was one, can take his first easy step into a reality hitherto unknown to him, the realm of faith. So why is this passage so important to me? Because it tells me, it was speaking to me actually, it tells me that, and for anyone here who doesn't believe, it says it doesn't matter whether you believe. You don't have to believe. We say God as you understand him. So you can call God anything you want. And he actually tells us that scarcely less valuable to us are those supplemental expressions, the expressions we use to call God. It doesn't matter. You can call God a doorknob. You can call God a box. You can call God a rocking chair. Bill Wilson says it doesn't matter. It does not matter. And I like to really read this whenever I start a conversation about God, because we have people in AA who would have you believe otherwise, which is why I always like to go to the literature. We have people who get bent out of shape if someone calls God a she. They get bent out of shape if someone calls God a doorknob. They get bent out of shape if they call God whatever they choose. But Bill W. says we can call God anything we want or nothing at all. And that's okay with us. So I really love this. And I will tell you that was for me, because even though today I am one of those believers, even though today I am someone that my life is so entrenched in this belief about God, I wasn't always that person. So in the 12 and 12, I'm going to read a passage and then I'm going to share a little bit about what I used to be like in terms of God. This is in step 11, the bottom of page 96 and the top of 97. Those of us, well, first it says, to certain newcomers and to those one-time agnostics, which was me, who still cling to the AA group as their higher power, claims for the power of prayer may, despite all the logic and experience in proof of it, still be unconvincing or quite objectionable. Those of us who once felt this way can certainly understand and sympathize. We well remember how something deep inside us kept rebelling against the idea of bowing before any God. Many of us had strong logic too, which proved there was no God whatever. What about all the accidents, sickness, cruelty, and injustice in the world? What about all those unhappy lives which were direct result of unfortunate birth and uncontrollable circumstances? Surely there can be no justice in this scheme of things, and therefore no God at all. Well, I will tell you, I am one of those people who came in a non-believer. I like to tell you that I was agnostic. I wasn't an atheist because I knew there was a God. I mean, I was born, I live in California. I was raised in New York, but I was born in the Deep South in the 1950s. I'm 72 years old, so I was born in 1953 in the very Deep South during an age when Black men were being openly lynched on television. So and I grew up in a family that was devoutly Southern Baptist. I mean, they talked about Jesus Christ all the time. My mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, all of them used to force my sister and I to go to church and to Sunday school and Bible school. And I have to tell you, I was young, so I really couldn't put my finger on the angst that I was feeling inside. but there was something that just didn't feel right. It was something I knew enough to know that something felt a little off because at church they're talking about Jesus and God, and yet I'm seeing these images of black men, and that just didn't make sense to me. Also, I was born at a time when in the South, they had colored and white bathrooms. Now, I was a little kid, but I remember one day my mother was taking my sister and I was born in Atlanta. So they were taking my sister and I to downtown Atlanta. My grandmother used to work at a department store that used to be called Rich's. Some of you might be from the area, some of you might be old enough to remember. I think it eventually changed to Macy's, and I don't know if it's even still there now. I remember one day my mother took Michelle and I downtown to meet my grandmother, and I had to go to the bathroom. And I'm a little kid, so I couldn't even see up there. One said colored and one said white. So I started going into the bathroom, obviously that said white. And the woman behind us yanked me. And honestly, I didn't even have a clue what was happening. But I was stunned, but I was also upset at my mother for not doing anything. Now, I didn't understand at the time that had my mother attempted to do something in 1958, 59, she might have gotten shot. Maybe her kids might have been harmed. So my mother just, took us and we moved away, but, moved away from the bathroom. But what that put inside of me was there's a difference between me and them. And then, of course, back in the day on television, there were images of black and white and all the black things. Anything black was bad and anything white was good. I remember watching The Lone Ranger, and the Lone Ranger always wore white. And of course, Tonto, who was Native American, and back then they called them Indian, and I'm part Cherokee. Tonto were black. So that signified to me people who look more like me are bad, and the people who look like the Lone Ranger were good. And those were the images I got throughout growing up. And so again, for me, it was really hard for me to wrap my arms around the fact that there was some loving God I should believe in. Fortunately for me, and I believe today as I sit here, I believe that eventually there was a God that I did not believe in that got me to Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was Alcoholics Anonymous that got me to the amazing, powerful force that I choose to call God today. Lucky me. It's okay if you don't believe. But today I am so grateful I am a believer. And today I am the person, and this is the quote that I used at the bottom of 97. Here it says, those of us who have come to make regular use of prayer would no more do without it than we would refuse air, food, or sunshine. And for the same reason, when we refuse air, light, or food, the body suffers. And when we turn away from meditation and prayer, we likewise deprive our minds, our emotions, and our intuitions of vitally needed support. As the body can fail its purpose for a lack of nourishment, so can the soul. Whoa. I remember I hear people talk about how elementary Bill W.'s writings are. They must not be reading his work because, number one, I find him to be prolific. So he's written extensively, but I find him to be deep. Every word was carefully chosen. Every word. I mean, the man to me, yeah, he was a drunk like me, but I believe each of us is touched in a way that God wants us to use our lives to help others. And I believe, Bill Wilson, part of his calling, along with Dr. Bob, was to create this amazing program that we have called AA. So also here in the 12 and 12, which is what I'll be quoting from page 98, there is a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit. But when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable, unshakable foundation for life. Whoa. So Bill W. is telling me, yes, prayer is important. Meditation is important. But when we combine those two with self-examination, which is our inventory, whether it's through step 4 or 10, wow, that's an unshakable foundation for life. So let me step back for a moment and just let you know how I actually came to believe. And I came to believe because of my sponsor. You know, I'm a big believer in sponsorship. I have the privilege of sponsoring. Actually, I've got a couple of my 3 sponsees on this call right now. General service and sponsorship have been my 2, and they continue to be my 2 favorite forms of service. And it was that first sponsor, Louise Robertson. I got sober in Las Vegas, and Louise was my sponsor for my first 22, 23 years, which is then when she passed away. If she was still alive, I'd still be with her because she was the most significant person God has ever placed in my path, ever. Because everything I'm about today, everything I feel, the way I carry myself as a woman, the way I carry myself as a sober woman, is because of what Louise taught me. And one of the first things she taught me was really, for me, it was important that I come to believe in something, you know, because honestly, the way I was out there tramping around, it really wasn't working. I'm a drug addicted, alcoholic prostitute off the streets of New York. So literally, I was tramping around. And, you know, she really believed that for someone like me, again, not everyone, but for me, I needed to come to believe in something other than the bottle, the bag of dope, or a man with money in his pocket. And so in the beginning, because I didn't really believe in God, she had me do a couple of things. Number one, she encouraged me to use her God. And I'm looking at my time, so I'm paying attention. She had me use her God. And she asked me every day, she said, in the morning, Francine, use my God, meaning hers, to give me the courage to not drink, to not use drugs, because I'm a drug addict as well, and not compromise myself as a woman. And she said, at the end of the day, I want you to just simply say, thank you. Thank you if you didn't drink, if you didn't use drugs, and if you didn't compromise yourself. She said, just say to my God, her God, just say thank you. Every day I did that. And I could tell you that I didn't drink and I didn't use drugs, but my first 2 years, I was still acting quite inappropriately around sex and men. But I did not drink and I did not use. Honestly, it was only through the grace of God that I didn't. She also had me read in the big book every single day 2 prayers. One, and this is on page 86. One is on awakening. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plan for the day. Before we begin, we ask God, and I was using her God, to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. And it goes on. I won't read any more of that. But that was in the morning. That's what I would read after I asked for God to help me not drink or use. And then at night, she had me read this one at the top of 86. When we retire at night, and this was kind of like a 10 step actually. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person? Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? And it goes on. But the reality is she had me practice doing these prayers because again, I didn't believe. And I just kept doing this stuff. And honestly, I couldn't understand why she had me read that stuff. To me, that didn't make sense. To me, that wasn't a prayer. But even though I was defiant, as she used to more often than not say, I hate it when she said that to me. I hate it when she called me defiant. Those are fighting words. You know what? Who do you think you are? This was, I said in my mind. I never said to her, of course. But I would be thinking that. But you know what? Whether I wanted to do it or not, I did it anyway. And the interesting thing is, after about 2 years, I started to actually realize there was a little opening. A little opening. You know, just like what Jody read, a spiritual experience. You know, I remember that very last paragraph when they talk about contempt prior to investigation. I could never understand at first what that meant. There is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Well, that's what I was engaging in. I prejudged this faith based on my childhood experience. That's what I was doing. And so what Louise was helping me do was just train my brain, train my consciousness to sort of rethink the way I had thought. Instead of, you know, being contemptuous before I actually had all the facts, she was asking me to engage in practicing a new behavior. And you know what? It worked. It worked. Unbeknownst to me, surprise to me, it actually worked. I started to believe. And as a result, and going back into the big book, I am one of the people that our 9-step promises talks about when it says we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves. First, when I was not drinking and using for a whole 30 days, that to me I thought was unbelievable. But I thought, okay. But when I didn't have a drink for a whole year, when I didn't have a drink for 2 years, and honestly, just turning 46 years sober on Saturday, I still pinch myself. I cannot even believe. And for those of you that are sober a long time, I know you know what I'm talking about. I am sober more than half my life. I cannot believe I have not gotten high nor drank in 46. I mean, honestly, I keep saying it because I can't even believe it's true. I think I'm lying, but I'm not. But I'm not. And I'm not because of this power greater than me. So in the last 10 minutes, I'd like to share with you some of the ways I use God because for me, God is a tool. It's not just me saying I believe. I use God. And here's some of the ways I use God. So number one, I haven't picked up a drink. That's one thing. That's really a blessing in and of itself. If nothing else happens, that's a real gift. But, you know, I've been able to, well, here, let me just read the other promise, because this is what God's helped me do. This is also on page 84 in the big book. It says, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. That has been one of the greatest gifts that God has given me. I have been able to experience life on life's terms. And I got to tell you, there have been more than a handful of times when I've done it kicking and screaming, but I didn't pick up. I didn't pick up. Honestly, that is the thing that baffles me even today. So some of the things that I've gone through, number one, just overcoming my own history. I never thought that I would ever do anything with my life. I mean, I remember growing up, the happy hooker was what there was a book, and I thought I'm gonna just grow up and be exactly like Xavier Hollander because I didn't know any better. You know what? That was it. I didn't know any better, and I didn't think I deserved any better. And so that was one of the first things I had to overcome that God helped me overcome. The shame I felt. I mean, I was steeped in shame. Oftentimes, newcomers will say to me, Francine, I can't believe you are so open about your history. Like they say, I can't believe it. And, and they say, how is that possible? And I say, number one, because I don't behave that way anymore. I mean, that's the big thing. But I also believe every time I have the courage to talk about my history, I give you and you and you and you and you all permission to step out of the darkness into the light. Because each and every one of us has a place of shame. I don't know any alcoholic that doesn't regret something they've done. I don't know any alcoholic. Your history might not be mine. You might not have sold yourself, but you might have sold your kids. Or you might have committed adultery, or you might have killed somebody, or you might have whatever. I mean, the list is endless what alcoholics can get into. Don't we know that? So it's like every time I have the courage, someone like me who doesn't live that way anymore, every time I have the courage to tell the truth, I know I'm giving other people permission to do the same thing. So it was my history was the first thing that I really had to work at overcoming, and God helped me make that possible. But there have been lots of other things. So I've been practicing law almost 35 years. I went back to school. I'm a high school dropout. I've got a criminal record. Again, I'm an ex-hooker with a criminal record. That's my history. I've been practicing law for 34 years. When I turn 73 in January, I will be practicing 35. Oh my God. Honestly, I had to clean up my criminal record. I had to get that cleaned up. God gave me the courage to stay the course and do that because I got to tell you, there were days I just thought, I can't do this. It's too painful. I had to go back into court. I had to disclose all that history, but God gave me the courage to do it. The other thing is, I am admitted to 3 bars. If there are any lawyers here, you know how difficult that can be. I'm admitted to New York, which is my first bar, admitted to California, which is my second, and I'm admitted to the District of Columbia. 2 of them I had to sit for exams. And I failed. I failed the New York bar twice. Me and John F. Kennedy Jr., if there's anybody old enough to remember him. He and I failed the New York bar twice, and we both passed it on the 3rd try. The difference between him and I is his pretty face was splattered all over the New York Times, the Daily News, and the New York Post. Me, I was just having to share it in every AA meeting, every AA convention I spoke at, because my sponsor would not let me lie. I hated her. I mean, I couldn't believe she made me do that. But you know what? There's something powerful about having the courage to walk through fear. That's where God came in. God, for me, is a tool to help me deal with life on life's terms. I failed the California bar. I stopped counting how many times I failed the California bar. I didn't pass the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time. I stopped counting the sixth time. I don't have a clue how many times I actually failed California, but I've been admitted to the California bar since 2007. You know, it's like God gave me the courage to do that and still talk about it. I remember I used to cry from the platform. I'd have speakers after me who would get up and make fun of me crying, and it was horrible. But God got me through it. I remember there were several occasions. I remember once I spoke at Yosemite. The same day I found out I failed, and I had to be the Friday night speaker, and I just found out. I mean, it was a nightmare. But you know what? I did it because God for me is a tool. God does for me what I cannot do for myself. In more recent times, I've got 4 minutes. In more recent times, my God has really, really worked overtime. So during the pandemic, we all had something to deal with. Every single one of us. None of us got out of this life unscathed during that period. Some of us had a little bit more. I was married to a man almost 24 years who I love dearly, Richard. My husband had cancer. I watched this man I love for 2 years. I watched him be eaten away by cancer. It started out as esophageal cancer, and then it metastasized into his stomach, and then into his bones. And by the time it hit Richard's bones, it was just a matter of time before he took his last breath. And I never even thought I'd be married, let alone a widow. And yet, there I was, a widow, right before the pandemic hit. But that wasn't even everything. Right before Richard went into hospice, I put my favorite cat to sleep. Now, you don't have to like animals. It's okay with me, but I worship them. I actually felt bad having to lock my three out. But otherwise, I think one might even be here, snuck in. I put my favorite cat, Mango, to sleep. And then right after that, Richard went into hospice and passed away. Right after that, I turned 67. Right after that, the pandemic hit. Right after that, my mom died of COVID in June of 2020 at its height in New York City. Right after that, I put my other cat to sleep, all within 7 months. I mean, it was like my God did not let up. I was thinking, any of you familiar with the poem Footprints? I mean, it's one of my most favorite poems. I'm not going to read it, but essentially it's this man walking along a beach, and he notices during the most difficult time in his life, he only saw one set of footprints. And he asked his God, he said, you said you would always be there for me. And yet, when I was going through all this stuff, I only saw one set of footprints. And God looked down at him and said, when you only saw one set of footprints, it was at that time that I carried you. And during that 7 month period, when back to back, one thing after another happened, I came to realize that God was carrying me because God did for me what I could not do for myself. I can tell you for a fact, I had a million reasons to drink and use drugs, but I had one good reason to stay sober. And if it was even possible for me to jump deeper into AA, jump deeper into service, jump deeper into literature, I don't know, but I sure did. I started 8 women's meetings on the Zoom platform when the pandemic hit. Every one was based on literature. Now we've reduced it to 4. I mean, I stayed in service when people said, you can't do service on the Zoom platform. Well, that's because they didn't want to do service. Yes, you can. And we're doing service right now. So, you know what? My God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. I'm coming down to 34 seconds. I just want to say again, thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you got something out of it, whether you're a believer or you're not. Come with plenty of questions. I'm here for you. I don't know if Alice is still here. If she is, thank you again for the invitation. Thanks, Cheryl, for introducing me. Thank you, group. Thank you, Calvin, and everyone else doing service here. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Francine, for a beautiful share. I'm going to kick things off with Calvin. Come on in, Calvin.
Hello, everybody. My name's Calvin. I'm an alcoholic. I thought it was two hands and one hand before me, but that's okay. And but Francine, my God, what a powerful, powerful message you brought. And to say that you got sober on July 26th, the same date that I got sober on, that God seen fit to get me sober. Saturday was my anniversary too. And and what I want to talk about, when you first start talking about your story and you start telling it, and I had the same things go on in my life. But I never had the courage like you had tonight to talk about it, to say the things that really, really has altered my life that I shut down. And but tonight, with you talking about the courage and the things that drive us forward in that place, that I needed to hear you. I needed to really hear you, and I want to tell you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Francine. If you
Thank
could
you.
just, tell me anything, I'll be happy. Thank you, Francine.
Thank you, Calvin. Beautiful human. Come on in, Alex. You're beautiful too.
Appreciate you. Feeling very beautiful with how welcoming this room is. And thank you so much, Francine, for your share. Hey, everybody, I'm Alex. I am a grateful alcoholic. I had two questions. How long do you pray for every morning? And how long do you meditate for every morning?
So I pray all the time today. My prayers are different than they were in the very beginning. I have a relationship with God today. So I just talk to God. I talk to God about all kinds of things. But are you talking about in the beginning when there was no set time? I would, there's no set time. Whatever you need to say to God, because I believe that prayer is me talking to God and meditation is me listening to whatever God has to say in whatever form that is. So I don't think there's any set time. And the other question was, what was the other question he had?
That was it. You answered them both, Francine.
Oh,
You're on fire. You're on fire.
okay.
Thank you. Come on in, Stacy. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for such a powerful share, Francine. When I was sitting in people would take me to uh the where people got sober at first. And they were dressed up and they had their purses and their shoes matched, and I was like, these ladies are not like me. And then they would be like you, they would tell their story and they would be honest. Thank you so much for doing that, because like you said, it erases the shame of what we were. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. What I want to ask you is, I want to ask you this. I know that you said your husband was in hospice. And I know that had to be a time that you had to be, you had to really put the spiritual principles to work in your life. How did you do it? I have a daughter that's in hospice right now, and she's only 43, and it's real hard for me to accept. It's real hard for me to accept that. So I just want to ask how you did it. How did you make it through? I'm not taking a drink. I'm doing everything that I can for her, but I feel that fear, and I feel like I'm going to explode. Like,
First, I'm really sorry for what you're going through, Stacy. I do understand. Sometimes when people say, I know how you feel, they don't. They haven't been there. But I do understand how you feel. Um, but I'll also tell you, in all honesty, there were days when I did explode. I didn't always get through this messy. I mean, not being messy. I got through it messy more often than not. But I kept showing up. And, I used the program, but I use the program for everything. I mean, I have always gone to a lot of meetings. I have always, since Louise grabbed a hold of me, I've always told the truth in meetings about how I felt. You know, I remember when Richard was in hospice as he was about to make his transition, I would go into meetings, and I was actually secretarying a meeting here in the desert. And I'd sit up front, and I would never pretend not to cry. And I'd come into the meeting, and, people would ask me how I was feeling, and I always told the truth. Number one, my sponsees are not even allowed to use the word fine because it's a lazy word. It's default. And I never would use the word fine. I would say exactly how I was feeling. I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm hurt. And I remember newcomers would say to me sometimes, Francine, I can't believe you're not using the word fine. I mean, I was 40 years sober. They couldn't believe I was being so honest about what was happening. So I think those are among the things, but I use my friends. I cannot stress that enough. Don't do it alone. You know, a lot of people in AA, even with years of sobriety, they say, I know what to do, but they don't do it. Use us. You can use me. I'm happy to give you my number. Use us. One last thing that I used, and this was after Richard passed. My husband died between Thanksgiving and Christmas, so you have to know that was not a good time for me. I got into Hallmark movies. Just saying, it helped me. I needed a happy ending, even for a moment. So anyway, that's it.
Uh, thank you for the beautiful question and the beautiful answer. Come on in, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm an alcoholic. I just wondered, out of how many times you had failed the bar over again, you never stopped to think, is this God's will for me or is this not? You just kept pushing. Was that because of your faith, or what carried you through to not make you second guess whether or not that was a call that God had placed on your life?
What made you think I didn't second guess? So I absolutely did. In fact, and there were people I was living in LA at the time. There were people who said to me, girl, God does not want you to be a lawyer. You need to give it up. I mean, there were people over and over and over again, except my sponsor, except Louise. But what she did tell me is maybe you need to step back. Maybe you need to step back and regroup, because every day every year I was either preparing for the bar, taking the bar, or licking my wounds because I kept failing. And so I stepped back with California. And it was during that time God gave me something else to do. I started writing books, but God gave me the courage to step back. And I didn't think I was going to ever do it again, take the test again, but I did when the time was right. But no, I second guessed a lot. But, that's all a part of the process. See, sometimes we're afraid of the process. And the process really is what gets, at least for me, it's been the process that has got me from A to B or A to C. The process is the B. And that's the messy stuff. But it's that stuff that enables me to sit here today and talk about it, because I've gotten through to the other side. But if I skip that part, I don't really have any experience, strength, and hope to share with anyone, nor to help myself. So I'm happy to talk to you offline if you'd like. If you're dealing with an exam and you want to talk, I'm so willing. So just put your, chat me up in the private in the chat. Thank you for the question.
Thank you both. Come on in, Ann. Welcome.
Hi, I'm an alcoholic. My name is Ann. I can relate so much to what you were talking about. I grew up with a family who did not believe in God at all. It took me years in this program to feel anything at all. I had a sponsor I had people told me that they didn't, I shouldn't be in AA, that I needed God in order to, to be in AA. But I had spiritual experiences when I did not believe in him at all. I had a near-death experience from drugs and alcohol in San Francisco in the 60s. where I had literally died, and I had a near-death experience from God. But I finally got to AA. People pushed me into it. I did. It was not a choice of mine. And when I had a spiritual experience that took the compulsion to drink away from me. I had a severe compulsion to drink every day. I didn't want to drink, but I was living with this compulsion. And it was suddenly taken away with a white flashing light, the whole beautiful experience. And I did not believe in God. And that did not change. When I had that experience, it changed my whole attitude towards everything. You know, I accepted AA as a way of life. I stopped drinking and haven't had a drink since, and that's a long time ago. I'm 87, so that's a long time ago. But when I spoke to my sponsor about this non-belief in God, she said, "Do you want to believe?" And I said, "Yes, I want to believe. I want to be like those people who came in and got sober and changed their lives."
And
She said, "That's enough."
And I apologize. Sorry. Do you have a question for Francine?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I get started going.
That's okay.
You know, you know, I wondered if I had someone coaching me to tell me to pray every day, even though I didn't believe in it. Did you have someone? I had someone really coaching me every day about learning to believe in God. You know, did you have someone like that? You know, how, you know, I'm wondering how you got to believe in God. It took me years.
So thank you for the question, but I had shared about that. My sponsor was the one, and all the things she had me do. So she was my coach, so to speak. Yeah.
Thank you, Francine. Lana, come on in. Oh, Lana, put your hand down. Hold up. Sorry about that. Come on in.
Oh my goodness. Hi, everyone. Lana, alcoholic. Very good meeting. Francine, thank you so much. I was sitting here and in the middle of your talk, I got a call. It was from my aunt. And she just got her diagnosis that she has cancer. And I loved what you shared because you let me know that this is a very practical program. It just ain't that complicated, you know? And in those few minutes that I talked to my aunt, I was able to get her to a God of her understanding, you know, and I let her know, like you said, be afraid. Go ahead and cry. It's okay. You know, cause she's like, I need to be strong. No, you ain't got to do none of that. You know, I don't do that. That's not how I practice these principles in all my affairs. I'm just like you. I'm just as honest as upfront of how I am and how I feel. And I have over 35 years of recovery, but I stuffed a lot of feelings when I was coming up, and I refused to practice that in Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you so much, Francine, for your honesty, and I would love your number. I tried to go private message you in the chat, but the chat said to everyone. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lana. Just want to apologize. Oh, is Jonna the only one? Jonna, if you can be quick, come on in.
Hey, thank you so much. Sorry, I had my camera off as well. I'm unwell today, so I was just listening. My question was around the other 4 meetings that you have, which I can see in the chat that a lot of other women have been interested in that. I'm just wondering if you could share them with us as well.
Sure.
And thank you.
Thank you,
Francine.
Dawn.
Chat, send me a private chat. It's a women's meeting, so any woman who's interested in attending, we meet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's literature based. It meets at 10 a.m. California time. It's an hour meeting. So any woman that's interested, I'll give you my number, and you would love to have you join us.